Amid strict lockdown measures in China's Xi'an city, a local reports that authorities struck his face with a brick for visiting his grandmother. The city has deployed almost 30,000 virus prevention personnel to the streets in an effort to completely eliminate the pandemic in the city. Tesla is opening a showroom in China's Xinjiang region, the area at the center of Beijing's human rights abuse allegations. China promises to use less coal starting 2025. But ahead of that deadline, the country put its largest coal-fired power plant into operation, armed with an ambitious 2025 production goal. And one of the last remaining independent news outlets in Hong Kong shuts down, dealing another blow to press freedom in the city. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Happy New Year. Before we start with today's daily news, we have a short announcement. As you may already know, YouTube has demonetized us for about a year. That means our ability to run ads or earn money on YouTube has been taken away. So if you like our coverage, you can donate to show your support. Here's how. In the description box down below, there's a link that will take you through the entire process. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to providing you with more insights into China in the year ahead. Let's turn to China. It's day 12 and counting of the strict lockdown measures in the city of Xi'an, and it appears those measures are getting even harsher. This is after the Chinese Communist Party's vice premier declared she wants Xi'an to completely eliminate pandemic infections by January 4th. But health authorities may be facing an uphill battle in the face of that zero-case goal. Virus cases are still cropping up, and the rising numbers have led authorities to designate more districts as high-risk areas for infection. As of Monday, at least 2 more districts had their risk levels raised. In total, Xi'an is home to 3 high-risk areas and over 60 medium-risk areas. On top of that, the city is beefing up its medical facilities. It opened 3 hospitals and added 3,000 beds for patients. With the vice premier's deadline fast approaching, local health authorities are enforcing mandatory quarantine rules. Online videos show authorities driving dozens of large buses, transporting people out of their homes en masse and into quarantine facilities. One Xi'an local tells NTD that the conditions at these facilities are poor.
If they find a suspected patient, the person will be taken away to the quarantine facility. In some cases, residents of an entire building are taken away. And the quarantine conditions are particularly poor. There's no heating. The environment is very difficult.
Nearly 29,000 virus prevention personnel have since been deployed to Xi'an. Because of the poor situation in the city, even Chinese Communist Party officials are being penalized. The Xi'an Evening News reported that a secretary from one district's party committee was removed from his post. The district's vice mayor has also been removed. With no end date to the strict lockdown in China's Xi'an city, some residents are feeling anxious, and some in the city aren't seeing signs of lockdown measures lifting up at all. In an online video, a Xi'an local says pandemic prevention authorities struck his face with a brick. In the video, we can see his face bleeding. The man says he wanted to visit his grandmother because he was worried she might not have enough to eat. And in another video, authorities were seen roughing up a local resident who went outside to get food. The man was holding a bag of steamed buns in one hand while filming pandemic prevention personnel with the other. In the video, the steamed buns can be seen spilling onto the ground. As strict lockdowns continue in Xi'an City, NTD asked some local residents on how they feel about the measures. Some say they think authorities don't really care about the people and are just following orders. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Described as one of the harshest citywide lockdowns since Wuhan. What are Xi'an locals saying about the situation? One local tells us that the measures are becoming more strict as the lockdown goes on. We gave him a pseudonym to protect his identity.
开始呢是说是 On the 22nd, after Xi'an was locked down, at first prevention and control was a little more lenient, allowing one person from each household to go outside every 2 days to purchase life necessities. Soon, on the 27th and 28th, it was completely locked down and no one was allowed to leave the neighborhood.
Another resident expressed their discontent towards health authorities' virus control measures. We gave her a pseudonym to protect her identity.
The police sealed people's doors. They're saying we can't get out. Now there's no food, no rice, noodles, or vegetables, and the phones aren't working. What can we do? But the police don't care. They only carry out the orders of their superiors. It's so bad.
One local commented on the famine-like situation happening because of the lockdown. We gave him a pseudonym to protect his identity.
This famine is something I really didn't expect. My ancestors are from Yan'an, and when I was a child, my grandparents told me about the famine they had. I never thought that people in the 21st century would still experience this famine.
The food situation in Xi'an City is gaining a lot of attention. As of Monday, a hashtag saying grocery shopping in Xi'an is difficult has been viewed 400 million times on Chinese social media platform Weibo. Don Ma, NTD News.
Two of the world's largest memory chip makers may be in trouble. They are warning that China's pandemic-driven lockdowns could disrupt manufacturing. Korea's Samsung and US-based Micron Technology are raising the concerns, warning that strict curbs in China's Xi'an city could disrupt their chip manufacturing facilities there. Chinese officials imposed tough travel bans on those looking to enter or leave the city. The rules took effect in late December. They fall in line with orders from Beijing to immediately contain COVID-19 outbreaks as they appear. The restrictions are also worsening global supply chain holdups. On Wednesday, Micron said the curbs could cause delayed supply for memory chips, specifically those widely used in data centers. The company added that the new regulations have resulted in staffing shortages at its manufacturing site. Samsung made a similar announcement the same day. The company said it would temporarily adjust operations at its Xi'an factories. These facilities produce NAND flash memory chips used for data storage. Market data provider Trend4 says the changes in Xi'an mainly impact smartphone and laptop makers. Samsung's Xi'an operation produces over 40% of all NAND flash products it makes. Pandemic control measures ruined the New Year's holiday for many people in Ningbo City. Ningbo is a major port city and industrial hub in eastern China's Zhejiang province. Officials reported 10 COVID-19 or CCP virus cases there on January 1st and 2nd. Due to the Chinese regime's history of underreporting cases, NTD cannot independently verify the numbers. The virus cases immediately triggered harsh response measures. All flights and trains from Ningbo to Beijing were canceled, starting from New Year's Day, and they will not resume until further notice. So why Beijing? The Winter Olympics is happening in a few weeks. To make sure the Games are held successfully, Beijing has adopted extremely strict measures for people entering the city. Now, back to Ningbo. All bus routes in the city's virus epicenter have been canceled. Many local public venues are closed, including internet cafes, movie theaters, and tourist attractions. But the city's port is still operating as usual. Local officials say the confirmed cases were mostly found at a local company. It's an original equipment manufacturer for famous sports brands. It exports to more than 30 countries in Europe, the Americas, and Southeast Asia, with customers including Nike, Adidas, and Uniqlo. It remains to be seen whether this will affect the global supply chain. According to Chinese state media, Zhejiang province dispatched 3,000 medical staff to Ningbo. The city now has over 7,000 medical staff, testing each and every person in the district with the outbreak. The extreme measures come from China's so-called zero COVID policy. Many residents question if the policy brings more harm than good. The Chinese language edition of the Epoch Times interviewed Mr. Hu, a local scholar in Zhejiang province. To protect his identity, we only use his last name. He suspects that the zero COVID policy is a false narrative. He said the government locks down here and there. It's okay for a short time, but if this goes on for a long time, it will place too much burden on the economy and on people's morals. He says the local officials are bad at managing the outbreak and that they only know how to control people, but don't know how to do things right. Tesla is opening a showroom in China's Xinjiang region, an area where the U.S. says Beijing is committing genocide. Xinjiang has become an increasingly challenging issue for Western companies doing business in China. The U.S. has banned most products from the region over concerns of forced labor. But for large Western companies that operate in China, their stance on Xinjiang has become a fine line to walk on. Companies that maintain operations there face criticism outside China, like German carmaker Volkswagen. Over 40% of its sales come from the Chinese market. Volkswagen says there is no forced labor in its Xinjiang supply chain. But companies that have expressed concerns about forced labor in Xinjiang face boycotts from Chinese consumers, like H&M and Nike. Microchip maker Intel is another example. The tech giant told its suppliers to avoid products from the Xinjiang region. But the news sparked negative pushback from Chinese internet users, and Intel later apologized to its Chinese customers. Xinjiang is located in northwestern China. It's home to 12 million Uyghurs, an ethnic minority. The U.S. says Beijing is committing genocide against them. That's through slave labor, mass detention, and forced sterilization. Beijing denies committing human rights abuses in Xinjiang. Tesla opened its new dealership in Xinjiang's capital, Urumqi. Posting on Chinese social media site Weibo, the brand says in 2022, let's get on this electric journey in Xinjiang and meet more beautiful things down the road. China is the world's biggest auto market, and Tesla has risen to popularity there. In 2018, the company became the first ever foreign company allowed to fully own its Chinese factory. And for the third quarter last year, its sales in China grew to almost half the size of its sales in the U.S., over $3 billion. Chinese telecom company Huawei says it expects its 2021 revenues to go down by 30%, and it's predicting tough times ahead. The company's apparently been battered by U.S. sanctions. In 2019, the Trump administration imposed a trade ban on Huawei, citing national security concerns. It blocked Huawei from accessing U.S. technology, including Alphabet's Android operating system for its new smartphones. U.S. sanctions combined with the pandemic weighed on Huawei. The company's once lucrative smartphone business was under pressure. The telecom giant later sold its budget mobile phone unit and started investing in businesses other than cell phones, including cloud services, mines, auto cars, and fish farming. China's biggest coal-fired power plant is finally finished, and it's going into operation. The Shanghai Miao plant announced last week that the first of its 4 1,000-megawatt units has passed the testing phase and is now online. The plant was constructed in China's top coal-producing region, Inner Mongolia. It will supply power to China's Shandong province on the east coast. The state-owned China Energy Investment Corporation operates the plant. Coal-burning power plants generate over 2/3 of China's electricity. As part of global climate agreements, Beijing pledged to use less coal, but not before 2025. And the country seems to be taking full advantage of that time. China's State Grid Corporation said in a recent report that until 2025, China will build up its coal-based operations, planning to boost power capacity by up to 150 gigawatts. That's to address its current energy problems. According to a December report from the International Energy Agency, China is tied to 1/3 of global coal consumption through power generation, and that figure is primed to go up. Another independent Hong Kong news site is shutting down. The outlet Citizen News says the move is to protect its staff as the media environment deteriorates in the city.
Citizen News is the largest independent outlet remaining in Hong Kong. That's after the Chinese regime pushed through its so-called national security law on the city and shut down other pro-democracy publications. Hong Kong's largest pro-democracy newspaper, Apple Daily, shut down last summer after police arrested several journalists and froze millions of dollars in assets. Its founder, Jimmy Lai, was slapped with charges including one for seditious publications. Another major independent outlet, Stand News, was shut down last Wednesday. That's after police raided its office, arrested several staff members, and froze the company's assets.
The indications are clear that overall media is facing an increasingly tough environment. And for those who are being seen as critical or troublemakers, they are more vulnerable.
Citizen News was established in 2017 as an independent outlet promoting freedom and openness. It had 40 employees. Hong Kong was handed back to the Chinese regime's rule in 1997. That's after Beijing promised the city would retain press freedom and political rights. But those rights have been eroded.
A group of Hong Kong lawmakers loyal to the CCP were sworn into the city's legislature on Monday. They recently won in a so-called patriots-only election. Only pro-Beijing candidates could run. Pro-democracy candidates or Beijing's critics were banned from running. This means Hong Kong's Legislative Council is in effect under the CCP's control. The election saw a record low voter turnout, just 30%. That's despite the city's efforts to boost the turnout by offering free transportation and other means. The pro-Beijing camp won all but one seat. During the swearing-in ceremony, the traditional insignia of the legislature was replaced by the emblem of the communist regime. And for the first time, some of the elected officials made their pledges in Mandarin, the language spoken in mainland China, instead of Hong Kong's local language, Cantonese. This past election is in stark contrast to the last free election Hong Kong had. Pro-democracy candidates won 90% of the district council seats in November 2019. But after the election, Hong Kong authorities arrested dozens of pro-democracy figures, and many remain in custody today. Some opposition politicians have also gone into exile. The Chinese Communist regime is asking talent agents and the actors they represent to swear allegiance to China's constitution, including those from Hong Kong and Taiwan. Authorities released a new set of guidelines called Measures for Acting Agents on Christmas Eve. It stipulates that acting agents must get certified in China. To do this, they have to pass a qualification exam starting next March. The regulations also require agents and actors to maintain what they call good political quality. The new rule doesn't explain what good political quality means. But in China, it's commonly understood that people with good political quality are those who remain in line with the Communist Party's policies. The rule doesn't stop at the border of mainland China either. It also applies to talent agents and actors from Hong Kong and those from Taiwan. Beijing does not rule the island, which is governed by its own democratic system. But there's a robust cultural exchange between mainland China and Taiwan, meaning some Taiwanese actors enjoy huge popularity in China. Taiwanese lawmakers are now warning artists about the risks of continuing to operate in China. Taiwanese legislator Rosalia Wu described the new rule as a big absurdity and another form of censorship. She says it goes against democracy and the freedom of thought. She warns Taiwanese citizens to think twice about whether to do business in China. Another Taiwanese lawmaker, Tsai Ing-wen, points out that Taiwan doesn't impose these kinds of restrictions on Chinese nationals, calling it the due respect to freedom of speech and performing arts. Tsai highlighted that respect as the key difference between democratic Taiwan and communist China. Kim Jong Un assumed power in North Korea 10 years ago in December 2011. How has the country changed under him? It is now better armed but deeply isolated and more dependent on China. Jason Albano reports.
It's been 10 years since Kim Jong Un became leader of North Korea. He marks the third generation of his family to rule the reclusive state. At times throughout the last decade, the youngest Kim's actions have raised and ruined hopes of economic transformation or opening up. Let's take a look at his legacy so far. Kim Jong-un was born in the early 80s. He was hailed as the great successor after his father, Kim Jong-il, died of a heart attack in 2011. But before that, the young Kim was shrouded in mystery. Kim's reign so far has come to be defined by one thing: nuclear weapons. 4 of the North's 6 nuclear tests have been conducted under Kim Jong-un's eye, along with numerous ballistic launches.
The entire United States is within range of our nuclear weapons, and a nuclear button is always on my desk.
But Kim's fixation on nuclear weapons has come with a heavy price. As a result, the UN and others have slapped tough economic sanctions on his country. That stands in the way of a political breakthrough needed to improve a shattered economy and prevent millions from starving.
North Korea has been working towards two huge goals: strengthening national defense and improving living standards. I think the living situation got worse because of sanctions and the pandemic.
Kim seemed to embrace a different style than his father. He sought to win international respect and sanctions relief through summits with foreign leaders who repeatedly called for the North to denuclearize. This even led to unprecedented meetings between Kim and then U.S. President Donald Trump. But talks with America have since stalled.
They wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that.
Soon after, the North conducted its first missile test in years. At least Kim had one ally in the U.S. who supported him.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Kim is known for displays of care towards everyday people in state media. But among those that have defected, some say that is just a facade.
Kim is emulating his grandfather because many people miss the past. So he tried to look and dress similar to his grandfather and shed tears while giving speeches. That's cosplay.
In reality, to tighten his grip on society, Kim seemed intent on continuing his father's worst practices. Executions, including reportedly against his own family members, to political prison camps and cracking down on the number of defectors. Kim has also overseen crackdowns on foreign pop culture as he seeks to stamp out influence from overseas. At least 7 people have been put to death under him for watching or distributing K-pop videos, according to a Seoul-based human rights group. Analysts say North Korea under Kim Jong Un is better armed, but more isolated. Sanctions and lockdowns have left Pyongyang over-reliant on China, with which it has a distrustful but vital relationship. Kim will have to make hard decisions over whether to trade any of his arsenal to win sanctions relief or find other ways to boost the economy, such as allowing more international opening without losing political grip.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. But before you go, we have a short announcement. We have our premiere at 9:30 p.m. from Monday to Saturday on TV and our YouTube channel. NTD is available on many platforms, including cable TV, satellite, and over-the-air TV across the U.S. And it continues to grow. Please check out ntd.com/TV. Type in your zip code to find all the ways to watch our show. That's ntd.com/TV. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.